Have you ever heard of the case of Japan's Twitter killer? Yes, at the time it was called Twitter, okay? If it happened now, it would be Japan's ex-killer.
9 dismembered bodies were discovered by Japanese police in an apartment near Tokyo.
But this happened in 2017, and it's about a serial killer who also dismembered his victims, and it's truly horrifying. So the reason I'm asking is because if you've heard of this case, then you can agree with me that this case absolutely comes with a trigger warning.
Please note that this content is for adults only. Viewer discretion advised. If you haven't yet, hit the subscribe, like, and share.
It's really disturbing, it's very dark, so just know what you're signing up for. Then, if you have heard of it, maybe you saw me recently on a channel and a podcast called True Crime News, formerly known as True Crime Daily, where I was invited as a guest to discuss this case with Anna Garcia.
Our guest today is Grizzly, a YouTuber and host of the Grizzly True Crime channel on YouTube. Grizzly, thank you. Welcome. We're so happy that you hopped over a couple of channels to join us today. We're so happy to have you. How are you?
And so, yes, I was assigned to deep dive this, and I did, which many of you have now reached out to say, can I do a separate video? Can I do a deep dive and give a rundown of the timeline, or maybe things that we didn't fit into the conversation? Of course I can. I'm here for you, right? But please go and check out that episode. I've linked it below for you. If you could go there and like and share and also leave some comments, that would be amazing. So thank you so much to True Crime News for tasking me with deep diving this case, because here we are. Now I have notes all over my desk, and I'm going to try to tell you the story, including all of this, okay? Because there's a lot to this case, and let's start with where this guy was born. So Takahiro Shiraishi, and I hope I'm saying that right. By the way, welcome to all the Japanese Grizzlies. Thank you so much for being here. Now, he was born on October 9th of 1990 in Zama, a city in Kanagawa Prefecture, just southwest of Tokyo in Japan. Now, little is known about his early childhood, but by the time he reached his teenage years, actually just before, when he was about 12 years old, everybody could already see this guy's a little bit different. A friend later recalled that Shiraishi really liked engaging in a choking game. Yeah, just put that pin in your mind, because, oh dear, he really enjoyed passing out and choking friends. You know, they choked each other. That's a little dark for 12 years old, right? Do you know anyone who did that? I actually remember when I was in primary school, there was one very bullyish little boy who liked to try to teach people to do that as well. I wonder how he turned out. I really do. I can't find anything about him online, but I'm like, Okay, so don't do that. If you're watching this, don't do that. Don't choke people for fun, okay? No, especially kids, oh my goodness. Now, this obviously was a red flag in hindsight. All these friends that knew him growing up were like, damn, I remember how he did that. And just wait, because, you know, it evolves into what he did to his victims. Also important to note is that one thing we know about his childhood is that he had a mom and a dad and a sister. But his mother and sister moved away. They moved out of the house and lived elsewhere, apparently to be closer to his sister's school. So I don't know if that affected him psychologically or not, based on what he would later do to women. I'm not blaming the mother or the sister. I'm just always interested in the psychology of someone who turns out like this, right? Another thing to note is that he sounds a little bit like a baby boy. And I say that because his mother, even after he had been arrested, you know, for these horrific crimes, and we'll hear what they found in his apartment, his mother said, but he's a good boy and he wouldn't even hurt an insect. Now, he, on the other hand, told an author that he just hated bugs. So did he not hurt insects because he hated them? Or because, you know, you're so kind and gentle? Obviously, based on this case, and now it turned out, no, he was anything but. But even at that point, when they found body parts in his apartment, okay, his mother saying, but he's such a good boy and he wouldn't hurt anyone. Okay, well, unfortunately, the evidence showed otherwise. And I understand that there would be some cognitive dissonance, there would be some denial going on there for the mom, but still, I just can't stand it when these baby boys are enabled. You know what I mean? Because by saying that, it hurts the victims' families even more, and it makes this guy just feel like, yes, okay, I've still got my mother's support. Now, by his mid-20s, Shiraishi had entered a shadowy line of work. I still want to know who recruited him. So what he was doing was working some odd jobs. His dad actually worked with car parts and things, but he went after school, didn't go to university, and that was apparently him rebelling against his parents. Interesting already there. But he went to work at like grocery stores, right? And when he was working there, somebody recruited him to become a scout in, now let me try to say this right, Kabukicho, Japan's red light district. Yeah, I think it's Tokyo's red light district, actually. Who recruited this guy as a scout? Because he didn't sound like he was very charming or entrepreneurial or anything like that, but it seemed like he actually did okay there for a little bit. Now, that area is known for its nightlife and underground activities, and they also say that the mafia there operates in that area. Now, his job was to recruit or lure women to work in sex parlors or brothels. But the thing is that even though it's like such a seedy neighborhood and there's lots of illegal activities going on, other scouts said, watch out for that scout. People in this seedy area were like, watch out for that guy. That's another red flag. Like, he stood out in that area. Okay, so yeah, people were telling each other, warning each other about him, warning other young women about him. And even then, he said that he really liked to, I don't think he used the word exploit, but the word is exploit. Let's say recruit. He liked to recruit minors, teenagers, because they were easier to manipulate. So he works there for a while, but what he's doing is illegal. So he would recruit women, lying to them, deceiving them sometimes, saying, oh, you know, you're so beautiful and you're so talented and you can work over here. And he would get a finder's fee. So he made some money doing that, probably more than working at the grocery store, and he actually really enjoyed it there. But then he was caught, he was arrested, and in February of 2017, an important year to take note of, he received a 3-year suspended sentence. So he didn't actually spend much time in jail from what I understand, but yeah, he couldn't work in the area anymore. He couldn't be a scout anymore, and he was very upset about it. By June of 2017, he told his father, I don't know why I'm alive, which is obviously expressing quite a dark thought, but he'd later also tell an author that he just manipulated his parents by saying things like that because then they felt sorry for him and gave him more stuff. Now, it was around this time, right, February, June 2017, that he starts using Twitter, which is now called X, but at the time, again, it was called Twitter, and he makes multiple profiles, 2 in particular, one called Hangman or Suspension Pro or Hanging Pro. This was obviously written in Japanese, so from all the translated articles and everything, it's kind of, there's 3 different versions that I've seen around, but pretty much Suspension or Hanging Pro. I mean, to even just claim that he's a pro at this, based on what, dude? Based on what? Your childhood? Where you like to choke your friends or what? What are you talking about? But that is already yet another concern. He's still living with his dad at this time. He's got the social media account, and he starts connecting with women who are expressing some very sad thoughts, right? They want to depart. And so he befriends them. He says that they can contact him if they want help to leave this earth, or he would sometimes make a pact with him saying, let's go together. His bio translated read, I want to help people who are really in pain. Please DM me anytime. Now, I hope that those of you who are watching here for the first time, if you wonder why I say words like self-exiting or sad thoughts or dark thoughts, it's just one of those things that here on YouTube, we got to censor that word, unfortunately. I wish we could just say it as it is, but unfortunately not. Then they age restrict the video and many people can't see it. So thank you for being here. Please like and share, not because you like the topic. We all know that you don't hit the like button because you like the topic, right? It's because maybe you like the way that I present true crime, or you just want other people to learn this information. Now, here's the thing. There was no genuine offer of support. This was all a guise. He was just saying, I'll be there for you. I don't want you to be alone. Like when you self-deleting, I'll be with you. Let's do this together. I mean, isn't that just so sick? Preying on these really vulnerable, despondent people, teenagers sometimes. And this is how he would begin to lure women to his apartment. He would give them very specific instructions saying, okay, number 1, you leave a note for your family and you tell them not to look for you. Number 2, you throw your phone in the ocean. Get rid of that thing. And number 3, you meet me at a train station, but don't stand near me. Don't look at me. I'll be standing at this exact spot wearing this exact thing. You'll see me. And then as soon as we spot each other, I'm going to start walking to my apartment and you follow me. And they would. That's what they did, right? So with one exception, apparently he used to use women for financial gain. So I would love to know more about that because it's just reported as such. And I'm like, but how? How did he do this? How were women buying him clothes and food and funding him and feeling sorry for him? This guy, these people that make people feel sorry for them and prey on people's empathy and depression, then, I can't stand it. So the first victim is someone that he apparently connected with on X and that he said, let's live together. And what he did was convince her to help him pay for the lease of a loft apartment. He specifically wanted a loft apartment. Now, this apartment he got. This woman actually met up with him, and she met up with him first in a park with a buddy, which was a guy. 3 of them chatting, they're connecting, and then later he gives her those instructions that he, became part of his modus operandi, and she goes to this apartment. She's helped him pay to the value of $4,500, which I think was around 50,000 yen, for the lease of this loft. And he says, let's live together. Almost like let's be depressed together, right? And she decides that, yes, okay, let's do this. And I'm going to help him with his payment. So she actually lived there for about a week. And then when it was time for him to pay back the money that he promised to pay back, he decided, nah, I'm not going to do that. Because he'd already been used to exploiting women and using them for financial gain. The other element of this is that he said he committed his crimes, 1, for financial gain, and 2, for sexual satisfaction. And that sexual satisfaction takes a very, very dark turn because it goes to the Jeffrey Dahmer place. If you know anything about Jeffrey Dahmer, yeah, then you know what I'm talking about. But don't worry, we're going to get into the details. So what he did was he gave her some whiskey, and in the whiskey he put sleeping pills and tranquilizers. I don't even know what kind of tranquilizers, but okay, and knocked her out. Then he sexually assaulted her. Then, while her body, she's unconscious, right? He, trigger warning, put a rope around her neck, and he was so excited about this loft apartment, and this is why. This guy runs up his little stairs in this apartment, which was 150 square feet or 14 square meters. Tiny apartment, but 2 levels. He runs up the little stairs, right? And he starts tugging at the rope, pulling her body up, 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 up until it's suspended. Remember, he called himself Suspension Pro? Oh my goodness. And then he would have the victim elevated, run back downstairs and watch them convulse. Now, it's been reported that he's watched them convulse for 30 minutes. I don't know if that would be how long this would go on, but he really apparently enjoyed that. Oh, that is so sick, okay? And then after that, he dismembered her. And he said, oh man, it took him 3 days. But eventually, he got it down to 2 hours. Now, let me tell you that eventually means 9 weeks, okay? He killed 9 people in the span of 2 months. Between August 22nd of 2017 and October 31st, yes, Halloween of 2017 when he was arrested, 9 people had entered that apartment and had been suspended and then dismembered in the tiny apartment. So we're going to get to all the things they found in that apartment, and I cannot imagine the smell. I don't even know if he slept, where he slept, what he did, because it gets so sick, okay? So that's the first victim. Now remember that she met up with him in a park with a guy? Yeah, the guy was worried about her, obviously, with her expressing some dark thoughts, meeting this guy. He knows he's suspension pro on X and he's been DMing this woman. So he decides, I don't know exactly how he knew where the apartment was, but he tracks this guy down, goes to the apartment, knocks on the door, and he's looking for his friend. Now, I failed to mention this at the beginning, but the victims' names are not actually mentioned, at least not in this episode, not on the True Crime News episode, and anywhere where people will respect the victims' families' wishes, because in Japan, they protect the victims' names. Now, the names have been leaked. If you really want to go find them, you can go find them. But I would like to honor the culture in Japan and also what the victims' families want, because isn't that why we cover these stories in the first place? Right? So this guy tracks Takahiro down, goes to his apartment, knocks on the door, and he's looking for his friend. Like, some people say girlfriend, but I think it was his friend. So he's looking for his friend. Takahiro invites him in. Come on in, buddy, because he realizes, oh crap, this guy is going to get in the way of my future plans, because from then on, oh no, he's going to do it again. He already decides, that's it, that was awesome, I'm going to do it again. Remember that at this time, her body parts are in the house. He used his bathtub to dismember victims. And he said he used saws, knives, a blender even. There was even a blender involved. All sorts of sharp tools to do the job. And this took 3 days. So this male friend comes into the home. He gives him a drink, which is obviously spiked. The guy is knocked out. And then he decides, man, do I have the strength to actually suspend this guy? Well, let me give it a go. And he does. He suspends the guy too. And the guy dies. And then he dismembers him. So that's why there's one male victim. 8 female victims between the age of 15 and 26. And this one male victim also in that age range. I think he was 20. So just so that doesn't throw you off with his MO, that's why he killed the guy. Because the guy came to his apartment looking for his friend. So that was already 2 victims down. 7 to go before he got caught, and in such a short span of time. Neighbors did start smelling something, but they wouldn't immediately jump in their minds to this guy dismembering people in his apartment. They weren't sure what it was. They saw him at the trash or the dumpster quite a few times as well, putting a lot of bags in there. He apparently threw organs and things away, but he kept the victims' heads, bones, arms, purses, personal items, phones, if they had it, if they didn't throw it in the ocean, their bank cards, and he stole from every single victim. Because remember, motives were sexual and financial gain. So one after the other, he starts connecting with more and more people on Twitter, using the exact same methods, inviting them to come to his home, saying, I'll hold your hand when you depart, I'll be there for you, or I'll even help you out, I'll suspend you. But you know what the thing is, when they were there in the apartment, apparently many of, and this is just so dark, that body parts had defensive wounds. So they say that they fought back, that they didn't actually want to die. And he bragged quite a lot about his crimes by the sounds of it to authors or anyone who would listen. He said that, many of them actually didn't end up wanting to go, but it was too late. They were already in his apartment and he wanted what he wanted. I mean, how sick and sad is that they thought they were completely at their wits' end. And I mean, one even lost her mother. Her mother had passed away. She was in a group home. She was not coping psychologically. And she met up with this guy and then decided, you know what, actually, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And he's like, too late, because here's what I want to do. Another twist in this whole story is that he actually did study how to kill, how to dismember bodies. He apparently Googled how to dismember a body, and also cannibalism in Japan. So I think this case would have gotten so much worse. He apparently said that he didn't ever cannibalize any of his victims, but I mean, he was thinking about it. He was studying how to do that and what to do exactly. But basically his MO became lure, drug, SA, kill, steal, repeat. And I mean repeat on a weekly basis. 9 victims in the span of 2 months. So 9 victims in 9 weeks, just about. So how did he get caught? On October 31st of 2017, he was arrested. And this is how it happened. One of the victim's brothers was aware that his sister was experiencing this ideation. And so he managed to actually get into her account because he hadn't heard from her at all. He couldn't find her. He went to her workplace. He went everywhere he could to look for her, couldn't find her, right? So eventually he gets into her account and on Twitter and notices that she'd been DMing with this guy, Suspension Pro. So he sends Suspension Pro a message. Suspension Pro blocks him. Okay, so now he's really worried. So he puts a public post on Twitter and he asks people, have you met this guy? Do you know this guy? Because I think my sister was actually last with him. Because in the messages, it was revealed that they were saying, let's die together. Obviously, the brother was extremely concerned, immediately reported his sister missing to the police. And now for him, he's panicking. He's looking everywhere. He's putting these public posts out. And a woman known only as Yumi, so I don't even know if that's her real name or not, I would think not, reaches out to this brother and says, I actually met that guy and he's really creepy. I ended up not going back to his apartment, but yet I know him and I could reach out to him. So they get the police involved and now it becomes a whole undercover operation. And so it's the usual where this Takahiro says to her, okay, so throw your phone away, meet me at the train station, leave a note for your family, all that. So she does that. When she's waiting at the train station, for some reason, he caught wind that something wasn't right. And he just said, okay, no, I can't do this. And he started walking back to his apartment. And the police followed him because there were a lot of undercover cops at this train station. They follow him back to his apartment on October 31st of 2017. And shame, this poor victim's brother, I don't think he expected for them to find what they found. They follow him, they knock on the door, they say, hi, we're looking for this victim. And now Takehiro's standing at the door, panicking in a way. Can he really panic? He sounds like he's completely cold. But okay, he's just thinking, calculating, let's say. And he opens the door wider. This is what reports say, okay? He opens the door and he points at a cooler box and says, she's in there. And they're like, what the hell? So they rush into the apartment, they handcuff him, they look in this cooler box, and in it is a severed head covered in cat litter. So they had to brush away some of the cat litter first. And he did this to try to, do some odor control. He apparently used bleach and bicarb and cat litter. He tried all sorts of things. There's also reports of him having water in the bathtub with body parts floating in it with bath salts in it. I mean, can you just imagine that scene? So as they find a cooler box with a severed head, there they spot another cooler box. They look in there. Yep, there's another severed head. He's arrested and he's got no remorse, no shame. In fact, he later told people he'd do it again and again and again. And I'm sure he would have. But I don't know what the plan would have been. Like, would his entire apartment be floor to ceiling, wall to wall, just body parts or what? The police discovered 3 cooler boxes and 5 storage containers in this little apartment containing body parts. But what's so chilling is that there was one empty one for his next victim. Yes, he was ready to commit the next crime. I mean, if Yumi had actually followed him there, that would have been his plan. That's what he was trying to do, right? There's a couple of conflicting reports about how many severed heads they found, but they say at least 2, and some reports say 9. And it would make sense 9. I don't think he would throw away the heads, right? But they said they found heads, arms, legs, and 240 bones with the flesh scraped off the bones. So this guy was like working on the body parts, and he was bragging that, used to take me 3 days to do this, now it just takes me 2 hours. When police interviewed him, he was ready to tell all. He confessed to all 9 murders. He said that he preyed on these vulnerable, very sad women on social media because they were just way easier to target and manipulate, that he did it for financial gain and because he wanted to sexually assault them, and that he also blamed the government because they arrested him. He enjoyed his scouting. He liked recruiting women into these brothels, sex parlors, so it's their fault because Now what was he supposed to do? Which makes me wonder, because he made it sound like he could no longer sexually assault women and get away with it, so he had to kill them. That's how he made it sound. So was he sexually assaulting women before that? Because it sure sounds like it. It sounds like, well, I couldn't get caught for essaying anyone, so I just had to kill him. He blames the government? Like, dude, no, this is far beyond any of that, beyond blaming anyone for anything. This seemed like this is where his life was unfortunately headed. So remember, he was arrested on Halloween, October 31st of 2017, and by September 30th of 2020, his trial started. Now, I was a little confused at first because they said he pleaded guilty, but then they say his trial started, and my brain was like, okay, well, obviously he pleaded guilty and didn't have a trial and was sentenced to death. But then I'm like, how was he sentenced to death if he pleaded guilty? It works differently in different countries, right? Like we just saw Brian Koberger plead guilty and the death penalty was removed. You know, it was off the table. So in this case, I was a little confused, but he did in fact apparently have a trial from September 30th to December 15th, and there were only 16 seats for the public, but every day 400 to 600 people lined up outside because this case was massive in Japan and worldwide. All eyes were on this because it was just so shocking. I mean, Japan is generally known for being a country that's very calm, right? Calm, quiet. The culture is all about respect and being gentle. Now, they do sadly have very high self-exiting rates, but they've addressed that and they're working on that and they're offering people better mental health support. And because of this case as well, people can't just promote that on social media either. But it is a factor to consider that because the rates were so high, he wasn't such a huge red flag on social media. And people on social media also had multiple accounts. They say they would have there's actually a Japanese word for it, I just can't remember what it is, but they would have a public account, right, that everybody knew about and their family and friends, and then they would have a private account where then maybe they could express some of these darker thoughts or sadder thoughts more freely, because there could be, I don't know, like shame associated with it, and they like to keep that more private, but yet they also want to express it. So they did that with these private accounts. So he also had multiple accounts, and he was reaching out to these victims with these multiple accounts, and some of them, I mean, the one is Hanging Pro, and what he would do with these accounts is share cute kitty and puppy pictures and then throw in there something really dark, like a really dark or sad thought, or saying that he doesn't want to be here anymore, does anyone else want to be with him when he departs, and he lured them that way. So it must have been quite confusing to look at his profile because he seemed to genuinely care, but it was completely opposite. I always wonder if the victims could, you know, if they could look down at all of this and be like, wow, that's what happened to me. Like, they would have never guessed that that's what would have happened to them. They thought that they were connecting with someone who really understood them, and that they were meeting with them, that even they felt safe, and that if they wanted to back out of the plan, that they could. But they couldn't. He was a cold, calculated serial killer. Now, this one's really going to piss you off. You know what his defense was? The defense team that he had said they would like him to face less severe charges and consequences because this was murder with consent, because these victims wanted to go. And to their surprise, Takahiro himself, he didn't like the sound of that. So he actually counteracted what his own defense team said. And he said, no, they didn't consent. They didn't, because by the time they were in my apartment, most of them backed out and I didn't care. I wanted to kill them anyway. He was charged with 18 counts, including robbery, forcible SA, murder, mutilation, abandonment of corpses. Yeah, you can just hear what those are. And he was going to face the death penalty for these. And after the trial, it was decided. The verdict on December 15th of 2020 said he was found guilty on all counts, and he was sentenced to death. The Tokyo District Court's Tachikawa branch rejected the defense's arguments, calling Shiraishi's actions cunning and cruel. The judge described how he preyed on mentally fragile individuals. Apparently he like crossed his arms or closed his eyes and would just be doodling and be so bored in that courtroom. My goodness. And sometimes just shake his head, or agree. Yeah, cunning and cruel. So he said that he would prey on those people. So he agreed with that. Yeah, I would. They were easier to target. Wow. And so they said violating their dignity in a killing spree deemed one of the most egregious in the history of crime, especially in Japan. The court sentenced him to death by hanging. Yeah, in Japan, the way that they execute people is by one method and one method only. And it's by hanging. So Mr. Suspension Pro, he's going to get a taste of his own medicine, is what they said. Now stick around, I'm going to tell you exactly how it works in Japan when they execute someone. It might surprise you because it's very different to how the countries that still have the death penalty actually do it. Side note, the death sentence is reserved in Japan for those convicted of multiple murders, because I was also wondering what qualifies them, for the death sentence. Shiraishi initially allowed his lawyers to appeal the sentence, but then he withdrew the appeal in December of 2020, finalizing his death sentence in January of 2021. He told the court that he had no intention of fighting the verdict and would just accept his fate. For the families of the 9 victims, the trial was described as agonizing. The father of a 25-year-old victim told the court, "Even now, when I see a victim my daughter's age, I mistake her for my daughter. The pain will never go away. Give her back to me." Another father, whose 17-year-old daughter was killed, called the death sentence appropriate. The names of the victims, as I said earlier, were withheld to protect their privacy, but their stories, high school students, university students, young people struggling with despair, left a lasting impact. For over 4 years, Takahiro Shiraishi waited on death row. They described his cell as being the size of 4 tatami mats. So I don't know in square meters what that would be, but it was a very small cell that he stayed in for over 4 years, not knowing on which day he would be executed. So that's what they do in Japan. The criminal has no idea when it's going to happen. Sometimes they even do them in batches. Right now, there's 105 inmates in Japan on death row. They have no idea when it's coming, and they don't know if it's going to be 10 on one day, 20 on one day, 1 on one day. They have no idea. But all of them will be executed by hanging. Justice Minister Kaizuki Suzuki authorized the execution and called Shiraishi's motives extremely selfish, citing the robbery, the essay, the murder, and the dismemberment that caused great shock and anxiety to society. The execution took place under the administration of Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, marking a rare use of capital punishment in a country where it retains strong public support. 83% when they do polls still support this method and the death penalty. So now let me tell you how it works. So what they do is they will tell the inmate just hours before the executor that, buddy, it's your day today. All the orders have been signed and today you will be executed. So they first take them to a prayer room, then apparently to an altar of sorts. So that sounds similar to me, but I've watched a video in depth on this. I'll actually link that below for you if you want to go check it out, because it's very well demonstrated. So a prayer room, an altar room, then they can have a snack, a cigarette, something like that. And then they're taken to this room where all they see is blue curtains. And they're standing there, okay? They get a blindfold put over them. And then their knees are tied together. They're handcuffed. They get a hood put over their head as well. So they really can't see. The last thing they ever see are those blue curtains, and they know that they're going to be executed on the other side, but they don't, the fear must be like, wow, like they don't even know how it's going to be. Now also, Takahiro said that he's not sure if he wants to be sentenced to death because he doesn't want to experience pain, and he's heard it can be pretty painful. Now can you imagine saying that in the courtroom in front of all the victims and saying that to the judge when you yourself hung 9 people, suspended 9 people. Now you're going to be suspended and you're like, I don't know if I like that. No, this is going to cause me way too much pain. Obviously, they didn't care. And along the way, he just admitted to it, bragged about it, and off he went. So this happened on June 27th of 2025. That's why the case is back in the news, because that's when he was executed. So they see the blue curtain, and then they are led into this room. The curtain's open, they can't see anything, obviously, and they're led into this room that has a floor with two squares. So it's a bigger square and a smaller square, so that they can put the inmate right in the center of that room. And above them is a noose. Now, on the other side of a wall, there's 3 officers, and they are tasked with pressing a button. Each one has a kill switch in front of them. But they can't see the inmate, and they don't know, once they press the button at the same time, they also don't know whose button activated the noose. Sometimes they say that these buttons also might on purpose have a delay or so that no one can figure out, whose button caused it. But there, 3 of them will stand, and once they are given the order to press the button, they press it, the noose comes down, and you know the rest. So the person is then executed. They immediately cremate the person, and only then do they tell family members and the public that the person was executed. Oh yes, and you might wonder, based on what I told you in the beginning of the story, that his mother was so supportive of him. His family, because of the shame factor that is a big deal in Japan, they decided to never speak to him again once he was arrested. Yeah, there was no like Stefan Stone's Madeline Soto case. If you don't know, there's a whole playlist for that. There was no commissary from them or phone calls or support. They were just like, cut him off, right? Okay, so I can respect that. But he also had asked his defense attorneys if maybe they could find him a nice lady so that he could get married while he was there on death row. And when they asked why, he said, well, because only family members are allowed to visit, and seeing as my family's not visiting, if I'm married, that's the loophole, and maybe they can bring me stuff. He didn't care about anything except getting stuff from people, right? He's like, maybe they could bring me snacks, clothes, things that I need. Wow. This guy was a total grifter. Like, he completely used women, and it sounds like from quite a young age. So he was executed on June 27th of 2025, cremated, they let the public know, and that was it.
This incident has caused a great shock and discomfort to the public. Due to selfish reasons, there were 9 victims over a span of about 2 months. A grave situation where young and precious lives are being taken.
That's it for this case. So they say that this case had a huge impact on social media, that social media platforms had to address this and no longer allow the promotion of self-harm and ideation. I mean, his profile picture was a manga character with cut marks on the neck and on the wrists and everything. So yeah, that's not allowed. I'm sure people still try to get away with this kind of thing today. But the policies became a lot stricter, which is obviously, I would say, also one of the reasons that here on YouTube we can't say those certain words, because then the video has minimal reach and is age restricted so that less people can see it. They try to, do damage control if you even just say the word of what we're referring to here. So that makes sense. We can actually see the impact, which I think is better overall. Japan also apparently gave more mental health assistance or resources to people so that they felt safe enough to reach out, look for help, rather than connecting with people like this online. Not that they knew that's what they were connecting with. They thought they found a friend on social media. Takahiro Shiraishi's life began quite unremarkably in Zama, but his actions left a scar on Japan. Now, 2 side notes from my scribbles here on my paper is, number 1, did you know that this loft apartment where he committed all these crimes was only about a mile away from where he stayed with his dad before? From where he grew up? Damn, very close to home. Okay, that might not mean anything to you. I'm just like, whoa, it's like on the doorstep of home that he was like doing all of this. And I wonder if in that time, was he visiting his dad at all or not? I mean, it happened so fast. He actually apparently told his dad when he moved out that he met the love of his life and he was going to get his own apartment. I don't know if his dad also gave him some money, because some reports say so, but majority of the lease came from his first victim, who paid it. Then another thing I wanted to tell you was that apartment, after all that, got a brand new tenant. The tenant was like, it's a great size, great price, great location, I'll take it. Oh my word, could you live in an apartment like that after 9 people were drugged, SA'd? And, hey, I didn't mention, some of them he committed necrophilia on. So, he would drag an SA. Some of them he would drug and then suspend, like kill, and then SA. Oh my goodness, what went on in that apartment is just so horrifying that, I don't know. I've said in the past that maybe, like we talked about the Chris Watts case and the house, and maybe one could buy the house and just like renovate it and fill it with love and just give it new energy. I think in this case, this little apartment, I'm not so sure. I don't think I would move in there. It sounds really scary just based on everything that happened there. And man, they'd have to do like some severe deep cleaning, because dismembering 9 people in there and then keeping their remains all over the house like that, it's too much. Okay, so let me quickly see if there's any other notes. Okay, so we're just going to quickly look what I have here just to make sure that I told you everything that I wanted to tell you. I mean, we've got I've got bullet points here for you as well, and all sorts of things. By the way, here's another side note I found, that his apartment number was unit 205, and I was looking that up because he reminds me so much of Jeffrey Dahmer. There's a lot of eerie similarities, even though there's also a lot of differences, of course. But I remember that Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment number was 213. So for a moment there, I'm like, whoa, it's so similar. I thought maybe it was 203, but it was 213. And then this one was 205. It's got nothing to do with each other. Just a side note. So to summarize, this guy went from being a scout in the red light district to not working. Okay, apparently he did quite well in school growing up. He did all right? No one really noticed anything much about him except the choking games. But to go from being a scout to then not working at all, telling his dad, I don't even know why I'm alive, and then finding a great thrill for himself. What? And then killing people at the rate of 1 per week? Again, I ask, where was this headed? I'm sure to cannibalism, right? And what else? I don't even know, because it already sounds so horrifying. Can you imagine the investigators that had to go in there and just see what was going on in that apartment? And he just pointed at the cooler box. Yeah, they're in there, by the way. Maybe some of you are asking if he ever showed remorse for what he did. Nothing at all. In fact, when asked, he said, well, 3 of the victims, maybe he shouldn't have. The rest, no, he feels absolutely nothing for. And then when they asked why do you say 3 of them, maybe you shouldn't have? He said, oh, because I could have, grifted off them for longer. Should have just kept that going. That's some good money. So, yeah. That one I regret, It's just about the stuff that he could get for longer. It wasn't about any form of remorse whatsoever. And when asked, would he do it again? He said, yeah, of course he would. If he wasn't caught, he would do it again and again and again and again. That's what he said, straight up, didn't deny it. So, that's the deep dive of this case today. Thank you again to True Crime News, formerly True Crime Daily, for sending this case to me so that I could study this, so that I could prepare for, my discussion with Ana Garcia. Now, please go check that out. The link is in the description box. I'll also put it in the pinned comment for you so that you can go and have a look at that and give it some support. I would really, really appreciate it. That was really a milestone for me. I love Ana Garcia and True Crime News, and that was just so great to have that discussion, and I hope to be on again sometime.
Consider yourself invited.
Thank you. So I will see you in the next one. I think now we all need to go outside, get some sunshine, get some fresh air, because this case is so terrible. And I am so sorry, to the victims' families. I'm sure they are still struggling to this day, especially this being back in the news. I understand that could be really painful too, but I really wanted to tell the story, also to highlight the dangers of social media, which is something I do regularly in the context of grooming. We see a lot of those cases, or these gangs that are forming online, getting teenagers to do horrific things, like to kill their pets or harm themselves and things like that. So I like to discuss that because it's important to. I think education is key. These things are happening and people need to know about it. So I'm looking forward to reading your comments below. Make sure that you are subscribed with your notifications on, and I will see you in the next one. Stay safe.